Learning to talk. It's something every single one of us does, a universal part of growing up. But have you ever really stopped to think about how miraculous it is? It's not just about kids memorizing words. It's this beautiful, kind of mysterious process where a tiny human mind learns to connect with another. So really, how does this happen? I think we all kind of assume it's just about kids listening to adults. But the real story, the one science is showing us, is so much more dynamic. It's less of a lecture and way more of a dance.
All right, so before we get to the dance itself, we've got to understand the basic steps. There's this well-known blueprint for how language develops, a series of stages that kids all over the world seem to follow, almost like clockwork.
Yeah, this timeline probably looks pretty familiar. Around 6 months, you get that adorable babbling. Ba ba ba, that's the first real practice with sounds. By year 1, single words start to pop up, where one word can mean a whole sentence. Then by 2, they're stringing words together in what we call the telegraphic stage. Short, sweet, and to the point. And after that, things just explode into more complex sentences. It's a really fascinating progression.
But here's the thing. This blueprint, it's just the outline. The real magic, the secret ingredient that speeds this whole thing up, it's not found in the steps themselves, but in the interactive space between them. It is all about the conversation.
To really get this, we're going to look at a specific scientific study that actually watched this process unfold in real time, and it gives us this incredible window into how this conversational dance really truly works. So here's the setup. Researchers followed 119 mothers and their kids for a whole year. They watched them during playtime when the children were 2.5, and then they checked in again a year later. And the goal? It was simple but profound, to see exactly how their back-and-forth chats evolved during this massive explosion of language ability.
And what they found was genuinely surprising. It points to this fundamental shift in the conversation, a change in who's actually leading the dance. This, right here, is the aha moment of this whole explainer. So first, let's cover the part that's not surprising at all. Over that year, the kids' language skills just went through the roof. They learned tons of new words, their sentences got longer, exactly what you'd expect for a kid going from 2 to 3. No shocker there.
Okay, but what about their dance partners, the mothers? You'd think that to keep up with their kids' booming language skills, the moms would also ramp things up. Talk more, use more complicated sentences, ask more questions, right? Well, that's not what happened at all.
And this is where it gets so interesting, because you see these two opposite trends. For the child, everything goes up. More words, longer turns talking, more questions. But for the mother, something else happens. The length of time she talks actually decreased. Her grammar complexity stayed the same. And get this, the number of questions she asked went down significantly. She wasn't talking more. In a lot of ways, she was actually talking less.
The study's authors put it this way. They said, as children become more sophisticated communicators, discourse features grow in relevance. What that basically means is, as the child gets better at talking, the structure of the conversation, that back-and-forth rhythm, becomes way more important than just the parent dumping a truckload of words on them.
You see, it really is a dance. An expert parent, and they often do this without even thinking about it, instinctively knows when to step back. As the child gets to be a better dance partner, the mother doesn't try to lead every single step. She doesn't talk over them. Instead, she creates space. She gracefully sees the floor, inviting her child to take the lead.
So this brings us to the big takeaway. Why does this dance matter so much? Because it shows that real language learning is about interaction, not just input. It's about making the conversation itself count.
And the core of that interaction is something called conversational turns. It's just a fancy way of saying the back and forth. Think of it like a game of catch. I say something, you respond. You say something, I respond. That simple turn-taking, that's the real engine of language development.
And the power of this engine is, wow, it's staggering. The study found that the quality of that conversation when the child was 2.5 could predict over 20% of the growth in that child's vocabulary a full year later. It wasn't about asking more questions later on. It was about how the conversation was structured from the very beginning to invite them to play.
So, when you boil it all down, the most critical factor for these kids wasn't just passively hearing a ton of words. It was being given the opportunity to respond, to take their turn, to practice putting their own thoughts into their own words.
So how can any of us get better at this dance? It really comes down to 3 simple steps. First, expand on what they say.
If a kid says car, you can say, yes, a fast blue car. You're showing you heard them and you're adding more. Second, ask good questions that get them thinking. And third, and this might be the hardest one, just wait. Give them the space to find their words. Don't rush in to fill the silence.
Ultimately, this completely changes how we should think about our role in a child's language journey. You're not just a teacher lecturing a student. You're a dance partner, guiding and following in this beautiful, improvised performance.
This means every single conversation, whether you're talking about what's for dinner or just playing with blocks, it becomes this massive opportunity. It's a chance to literally build the language centers of a child's brain and, maybe more importantly, to invite them into the great human conversation.
So I'll just leave you with this to think about. The next time you're talking with a young child, are you going to focus on just counting the words you expose them to? Or are you going to focus on the back and forth, on the rhythm of the exchange, and truly make that conversation count?